There's a number that every Los Angeles Dodgers fan needs to sit with for a moment. 7 wins and 9 losses over the last 2.5 weeks. That is the record of a team that entered this season as the consensus favorite to win the World Series. A team that spent more money building its roster than any franchise in the history of professional baseball. A team with Shohei Ohtani in the lineup every single day. And yet, here we are, watching that same team drop series after series, lose at home to the Miami Marlins, and struggle to generate consistent offense against pitching staffs they should be handling without difficulty. That is the uncomfortable reality sitting at the center of this story. But here is what separates this from a straightforward bad stretch narrative. At the exact same time the big league club has been grinding through this rough patch, 2 things have been happening away from the main stage that could completely change the outlook for the rest of this season. A young pitcher nobody predicted is quietly putting together one of the most dominant early season stretches in the entire National League. And one of the most talented left-handed starters in baseball is throwing in the minor leagues right now, sharp, healthy, and almost ready to return to a rotation that desperately needs him. This is not a panic story, but it is an honest one. To understand why Sunday's win against the Cardinals felt like more than just a box score result, you have to understand what the Dodgers were carrying into that game, a 4-game losing streak. A recently completed home series loss to the Marlins, a team that has no serious postseason expectations this year, and a manager in Dave Roberts who had been telling reporters repeatedly that the offense was on the verge of breaking out, that he could feel the energy shifting in the clubhouse. After hearing that message multiple times with no results to back it up, even the most patient members of the Dodgers fan base were starting to question whether those words had any real meaning left. The pressure inside that clubhouse on Sunday morning was genuine. The team needed a performance. What they got was one of the most complete individual pitching efforts of the entire season, and it came from someone very few people had circled on their preseason calendars. Justin Robleski delivered 6 scoreless innings against the St. Louis Cardinals, 6 hits allowed, 0 walks. From the first pitch of the game to the moment he left the mound, he was in complete control, executing his game plan, attacking hitters, and giving his team exactly what it needed. But here's the detail that elevates this beyond a single strong performance. This was his second consecutive start going 6 scoreless innings. He is now 5-0 on the season. His ERA is 1.25. He has not surrendered more than 1 run in any start since his very first outing of this year. Across every metric available, this is not a pitcher running hot for 1 or 2 weeks. This is a pitcher who has found a level and is sustaining it. Before the season began, building the case that one of the Dodgers' most reliable starters would be a young left-hander named Robleski would have been a difficult argument. Right now, the numbers make that argument on their own. This is also the moment to say something directly to everyone watching baseball daily right now. This channel is pushing toward its first 500 subscribers. And every single person in this community is part of making that milestone happen. If you have not subscribed yet, do it right now. Hit the button, drop a like on this video, leave a comment below, and share this with someone who cares about baseball. This channel exists to deliver exactly this kind of detailed, fact-driven baseball breakdown, no filler, no noise, just the game analyzed the right way. If you enjoy real baseball content and breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next. Now back to everything that unfolded on Sunday afternoon in St. Louis. The offense was not spectacular, but it was purposeful, and in a game following a 4-loss streak, purposeful is exactly what was needed. The second inning is where it started. Kyle Tucker led off with a double, putting a runner in scoring position immediately. Max Muncy worked a walk to put 2 on. Andy Pages came through with a double of his own, and just like that, the scoreboard read 1-0 Dodgers. Ha-Seong Kim followed with an RBI single to push the advantage to 2-0. Kim's contribution on Sunday extended well beyond that one at-bat. He was a consistent presence throughout the entire game, reaching base, moving runners, forcing the Cardinals' defense into difficult decisions, and doing the kind of understated work that does not always show up prominently in the box score but directly impacts whether a team wins or loses. The 5th inning produced the most meaningful moment of the afternoon, not because of the run it generated, but because of what that run represented historically. Kim reached on an infield single. Ohtani moved him over into scoring position. Freddie Freeman stepped in and delivered an RBI single to make it 3-0. That RBI pushed Freeman past Johnny Mize on the all-time list, moving him into 94th place in career RBIs in the history of professional baseball. That is one of the most exclusive statistical leaderboards the sport has. In the middle of a regular season series, on a Sunday afternoon, Freddie Freeman quietly climbed further into baseball immortality. These are the moments that sometimes pass without the acknowledgement they deserve. A future Hall of Famer is performing at the highest level right in front of this fan base, and it is worth stopping to recognize that. Dustin May started on the mound for St. Louis, the same pitcher who stood on the field hours earlier receiving a World Series championship ring from the Dodgers organization, the team he helped win a title before being traded away. He then had to take that ring and pitch against the team that gave it to him. He allowed 3 earned runs across 6 innings. The symbolism of that situation was not lost on anyone watching. and the results were not the redemption story he was likely hoping to write. St. Louis made this game competitive. The Cardinals put runners on base in the second, third, and fourth innings and scored 0 runs across all 3 of those situations. That is not coincidence. That is a pitching staff and a defense executing under pressure and refusing to let opportunities become damage. Buster Gratterall came in for the 7th inning, walked the leadoff batter, and hit Ohtani with a pitch. He still got through the inning without allowing a run. Schuster handled the 8th and came up with a double play at exactly the right moment. The Cardinals scratched 1 run across late, a sequence involving a walk, a misplayed outfield single, and an unearned run off a Mason error. But the final score held at Dodgers 4, Cardinals 1. The footnote that deserves more than footnote treatment. Shohei Ohtani went hitless for the entire series in St. Louis, 0 hits across the full series for the player widely regarded as the best in the sport. The Dodgers still won 2 of the 3 games. That is a direct and concrete statement about the construction of this roster. When the best player on the team has a series to forget and the team still comes out ahead, that speaks to depth that most franchises simply do not have. And when Ohtani gets going offensively, and based on everything he has shown throughout his career, he will. The offensive ceiling for this team is significantly higher than what these recent weeks have shown. Now the story shifts, and this is the section that carries the most weight for where this season is headed. While the Major League club was dropping a 2-1 decision to the Marlins in a game where Ohtani struck out 9 batters in 6 innings on the mound, and the offense still came up short, Blake Snell was in the minor leagues delivering a performance that reminded everyone exactly why the Dodgers made him one of the highest-paid pitchers in baseball history. His second rehab appearance for the Single-A Ontario Inland Empire 66 ers produced this line: 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 hit, 0 walks, 39 pitches. Arrow across 2 rehab starts, 2.25. Read through the inning-by-inning detail because it matters. The first inning, 13 pitches, 3 batters, 3 strikeouts. The inning was over before it started. The second inning, the leadoff hitter reached on a double, a moment where a pitcher working his way back from injury might naturally play it safe, manage the situation, protect against further damage. Snell did not manage. He struck out the next 3 batters consecutively. Back-to-back-to-back strikeouts with a runner in scoring position. The third inning was 3 up, 3 down, efficient, clean, and completely without drama. That is not a rehabilitation outing. That is a dominant pitching performance that happened to take place at the Single-A level. The concern surrounding Snell's injury was legitimate from the moment the words left shoulder fatigue entered the conversation. For a fan base that has lived through significant injury setbacks in recent seasons, the instinct to prepare for the worst was understandable. But what his second rehab start demonstrated was not simply positive results. It was the presence of sharp command, clean delivery mechanics, and the kind of competitive edge that does not come from a pitcher who is still working through physical limitations. He was not managing his way through 3 innings. He was imposing himself on hitters. That's vintage Blake Snell. That's the guy we signed. Snell has spoken openly about how he has approached this process, and his words reveal a pitcher who is thinking clearly and competing at a high level mentally even while physically building back. He described the first 2 rehab starts as a deliberate information-gathering phase, focused on how his arm responded between outings, what felt right mechanically, what needed refinement. That phase is now complete. The next phase is defined by aggression, pushing harder, performing at a higher level, and moving toward the specific benchmarks the Dodgers have established for his return to the Major League rotation. Those benchmarks are concrete: 5 innings and 75 pitches in a single rehab start. That is the threshold the organization wants to see before activating him. Snell's personal approach to reaching that threshold is built on efficiency. "My goal is to dominate innings and use as few pitches as possible," he said. The reasoning is direct. The more efficient he is per inning, the deeper into games he can go, and the faster he reaches the pitch count and inning thresholds required for his return. He also acknowledged something that speaks to his competitive mindset. He said he has been pushing the Dodgers to move the timeline faster, and that the organization has been the ones insisting on doing this correctly. "There's a reason why they're the Dodgers," Snell said. "They're good at everything." That dynamic, a player hungry to return pushing against an organization disciplined enough to hold the line, is exactly what a professionally run franchise looks like. Rushing a pitcher back from shoulder issues rarely ends without consequences. The Dodgers are not rushing, and Snell, despite his impatience, trusts the process they have built around him. There is still no confirmed return date. Additional rehab starts are required. The benchmarks still need to be reached and health needs to hold through the rest of the process. The uncertainty is real and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. But the direction is clearly positive, and the picture that emerges when Snell returns to full health is one that should concern every other team in the National League. Ohtani, Glasnow, Snell, Robleski, a pitcher currently posting a 1.25 ERA through 5 starts. That rotation at full strength is capable of carrying this franchise deep into October. The one thread in this story that carries no positive spin is the update on Mookie Betts. He has been absent from the lineup since April 4th with a right oblique strain. The medical timeline established at the time of the injury projected a return somewhere in the 4 to 6 week range. That projection is now under serious pressure. Betts reported renewed soreness in the oblique after participating in live batting practice. forcing the Dodgers to halt his progression and reassess. He has since indicated that he believes he has turned a corner and is working toward resuming his ramp-up. But oblique injuries carry a specific history in baseball. They linger, they aggravate under load, and they have a consistent pattern of extending timelines beyond what initial projections suggest. Reaching the early end of the 4 to 6 week window is no longer realistic. A rehab assignment before returning to the active roster is now the most likely path forward. The Dodgers and their fan base are going to need patience on this one. Here's the complete picture of where the Los Angeles Dodgers stand right now, with every piece of it laid out plainly. The record is 21-13. The team has won just one of its last 5 series. The offense has been inconsistent and at times genuinely frustrating, which is the core problem driving this rough stretch. The starting pitching has held up. The bullpen has done its job. And underneath the surface of the struggles, there are real reasons to believe this situation changes. Robleski is pitching like a legitimate top-of-the-rotation arm. Blake Snell is building toward a return that could transform this staff. Freddie Freeman is producing at a Hall of Fame level. And Shohei Ohtani has a full offensive breakout still sitting ahead of him in this season. This team has navigated difficult stretches before. The roster construction is too deep and too talented for this to be a sustained collapse. The switch will get flipped. The only real question is when. Leave a comment right now with your answer to this. When Snell comes back and slots into this rotation, where does Robleski go? Does he stay in the starting 5? Does the depth create a trade option at the deadline? That is a real conversation this fan base needs to be having. Share this video with someone who follows the Dodgers. This is the kind of breakdown that gives you the full picture without the noise. And if Baseball Daily has given you something worth coming back for, subscribe right now. 500 subscribers is the target, and this community is the reason that number is going to fall.